if you have a child who needs Aurum metallicum, it's very unlikely they will tell you, I have suicidal depression. I start with one of my cases. If I remember correctly, the first prescription of mine of this remedy to very, very young child, it was a child about, I think about 1 year old or something. I don't know. I'm not sure about the precise age, but it was really, really small boy. And the first thing I've observed was that there was no emotional, any emotional expression of joy in the child. So usually in such a small children, they are quite reactive, and they are, because they are usually emotionally healthy at the beginning, or at least more healthy than adults. They usually smile a lot and laugh a lot. If they not when they are 2 weeks old, but when they are 1 year old, let's say, they usually see smiling and laughing and everything. But the first thing I observed in this boy was that he was very, very serious, right? The appearance, the expression, the facial expression was very serious. So I asked the mother, is it always like this? Is it always that serious? And mother says, yes, he's always been like that, very serious. I never see him smile, never ever. So that's why we were quite suspicious whether he's autistic or something. But regarding the development, everything was fine. So there was no sign of autism. Of course, autism is very, very difficult to diagnose in such early age, but anyhow, usually there is some kind of developmental issues in children with inborn autism or even juvenile autism. But in this child, nothing was a problem with development, but he was a very, very serious boy. Never smile, never laugh, nothing. And this is something very, very strange in such a small child. And the main problem was not this. The main problem was not he was not smiling. The one main problem was that there was undescended testicle. There was undescended testicle. I don't remember exactly whether it was right or left, but one testicle was not down yet. It was undescended, and that was the case. So the mother told me that they undergone some examination, and they are not sure whether it's mechanical problem or whether it's a functional. So I told her I'm not sure what I can do for her, because if it appeared to be mechanical problem, nothing can be done with homeopathy, and there must be surgery to correct this. But if it's a functional problem, then homeopathy can offer definite help. And then I recalled a very important sentence. I think I'm not sure whether it's from Clark or Kent, but this is the very famous sentence about Aurum from Old Mater Americas. Undescended testicles in punny, sickly boys, and he looks quite punny, sickly looking. He was quite emaciated and not gaining weight properly, and a little bit smaller, right? So he looked punny and sickly, and he had undescended testicle. But another thing was this, that he was a very serious child, and I've seen hundreds and hundreds of children, but never such serious child. And this is a very small rubric in synthesis, and you see Aurum is here, and it's something which is very famous for this remedy. So I gave him Aurum metallicum 200 because there were no other indications. And believe or not, within very short period of time, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, they found the testicle on its place. And the mother told me after 3 weeks, then it was the first time in his life he started smiling. And I took care about this boy, I think another several months, or I observed this boy for another several months, and he was doing well and smiling normally, and very nice boy. So this seriousness went away after our metallicum, and also this sickly looking appearance went away because the appetite went higher after our metallicum, and he put some weight, and the testicle was on its place. So it was definitely a good prescription in this boy. And it was, as far as I remember, it was my first case of very, very young child of this remedy. And since then, I prescribed this remedy to several children. And it must be said that it's very close to Natrum muriaticum, because these children, when older, especially when older, they are very close. They are very closed, and they are very, very emotionally sensitive and vulnerable. So the combination of introversion and emotional vulnerability is very, very close to Natrum muriaticum. So that's why they are very prone to get sick from grief. And they are very sensitive to grief. And this is one of the most important grief remedy. So in any case, and these cases don't have to be suicidal cases. In any case, when you have ailments from grief, you have to think of Aurum metallicum along with Natrum muriaticum, because it's one of the most underestimated remedies in this aspect, because we usually are able to prescribe this remedy only when we see the suicidal depression, which is the final stage of the very long disease process. And the end stage of this disease process is suicidal depression. So remember, you don't have to have suicidal depression to prescribe Aurum metallicum if you see enough confirmations. So don't wait for suicidal depressions to be there with Aurum metallicum. Now, how these things happen, how they develop into suicidal depression, what is the course of the sickness behind it, and how it's expressed in children. These children are not affectionate children. They are not openly emotional. They are much more introverted than Natrum muriaticum. When we make a difference between Natrum muriaticum and Aurum regarding their closeness, for instance, when you take Natrum muriaticum patient, you have a child who is able to open up to one person, like to grandma or grandfather, or father or mother, depending on, who spends the time, who is able to develop the relationship with them, but they finally open up to a person, and they develop very strong affection towards that person, Natrum muriaticum child. And the problem usually starts when they lose that person, because it's very difficult for them to open up emotionally towards someone. So it takes time. And one day reaches the point when develop such a strong tie, emotional bond with someone, and they lose that person, it's devastating for Natrum muriaticum. That's why they are so sensitive to grief, and that's why they can get very severely sick after losing someone, because these are introverted people. I'm still talking about Natrum muriaticum now. They are introverted people, and it's not easy for them to establish a new relationship. It takes time, it takes months and years to develop trust and deep connection, and to really open up, because they feel very vulnerable. So they are very careful about what they say to someone, and they can open emotionally to someone after a long time when they develop deep connection with them. And that's the case with Natrum muriaticum. And once this relationship is lost, whether by being rejected by that person, being disappointed by the person, or after this person dies, they are devastated. Now, Aurum metallicum is not able to open up to someone, right? It never opens up, really. That's the point. It never opens up. So the intensity of their introversion, the intensity of their closeness is much, much stronger compared to Natrum muriaticum. Much stronger. They will never open up. So as George says, Aurum metallicum is very, very emotionally weak, right? While they are extremely mentally strong. So the weakness in the emotional plane is somehow compensated by the exaggeration on the mental plane. And the exaggeration on the mental plane in Aurum metallicum is expressed as very exaggerated ambition, right? They are very ambitious children. So they know what they want from the very beginning. When they go to school, they know what they want. They have a goal. They have an ambition. And they work at that goal every day. They are consistent. They are responsible. They have high ideals. Regarding high ideals, they resemble Ignatia. What they feel is that they are born to make something great. There is ingrained egoism, like they are better than others. They feel like that. They feel they were born to do something bigger, right? And they deserve something bigger, something better. So they work consistently towards that goal. And while working consistently towards that goal, they are still being very, very emotionally weak, very emotionally sensitive. So if you put these two features together, you have very, very unique combinations. So they are very ambitious children. They work and work and work. They are consistent. They are responsible and everything. And they feel good when going closer and closer to that goal. But if there is a least problem during this path, right? There, it has usually devastating consequences for them. So, for instance, their goal is to be the best in the class. Let's say the first goal is I will be best in the class. So I will never get anything worse than A mark, right? So A mark is the only option, right? So let's say they work and work and work, and usually they have an A mark, they get A from the examination, from whatever. But let's say there is an episode that somehow they do a mistake and they don't get A, but they get B or C. And they are devastated. They get home and they don't go to the father or mother saying, well, I feel bad because I get a B and I put so much work into it, but it goes nowhere because I failed. They don't tell it openly because they are emotionally vulnerable. They cannot face the failure of any kind openly. So they close. They become more introverted, and they internalize that feelings, and they develop the very strong feelings of failure, although nobody else around them perceive it as a failure because 99% of the time they have A mark from everything, but this day they get B or C and they get devastated because they feel as complete losers. They feel as they failed completely. Why they are so affected? Because they are very emotionally weak. They cannot face any kind, even least failure. They cannot, because at that time they feel worthless. They feel they failed. They feel they cannot attain that goal. And that's the precondition for the depression, which may develop much, much later. But sometimes even in teenager age, and I've seen it in my practice, they develop suicidal thoughts just from this. So the idea is that in Aurum metallicum, their own relationship, their own bond to their life is quite weak. So if they feel they failed, they feel as they are worthless. And then it can be first time when they have a suicidal thought in their mind. It's not depression in real sense, but they feel that maybe it's a better idea to die than to live with this world when they failed. You understand? So, of course, think of Aurum metallicum in any case when you have suicidal thoughts in children, because it's not very likely you will see suicidal depression in children, but nowadays it's more and more frequent. But if you see this, it's very important not to prescribe just based on symptoms suicidal depression, but to understand whether the predisposition, whether the precondition, whether the all things before this developed agree with Aurum metallicum. I remember a case. It was a boy it was a man already. He was about maybe 16, 17. And he was in a state that he told me the main problem was migraine. And that was the main thing. He told me, I have migraine, very strong one. I don't remember the exact period, whether it was once in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It doesn't matter now, but it was recurrent headaches, very strong headaches. And there were no modalities, and I tried to understand the etiology, and I didn't find nothing. But what was interesting was his mental emotional state, long-term chronic state. He was very ambitious. I would say extremely ambitious. He told me he wanted to stop studying at school because he did not see any sense of continuing in the school, because the teachers who were teaching there were old people without any knowledge he can use in the future. So he finally ended up with a small business he developed, and he was completely dedicated to develop a very powerful position in the future. So he told me, I'm very ambitious, I know what I want, and my only goal is to attain the position with a very strong power and money, right? Okay, and I asked him about the girls and relationship with girls, because he was a young guy. And he told me, I don't care about girls, I only care about my business. And it's something you don't hear quite frequently from young boys, because young boys are usually related to young girls, and there was no trace of it in this boy. So I understood how attached he was towards this goal. So the attachment towards to become very powerful and very rich was there very strongly, suppressing completely his natural sexual desire, which is normal in that age. And I asked him whether he is happy with this. And he told me, I don't think happiness is something important. I think that developing this kind of position is important because I can do big decisions, and I will be rich. I can do whatever I want and everything. So I understood that he is so attached to this goal that whenever, and this is only a matter of time, when someone will cross his path, triggering the feeling of failure in him, it will have devastating consequences, because the more attachment, the more consequences, of course. And he was extremely attached towards this goal. And he was not in suicidal state, and he never had a suicidal depression in his whole life. But I knew that if I don't give Aurum metallicum, it's just a matter of time he will develop into suicidal depression because of this strong attachment towards his business. And there is always better days and not so lucky days in business. So there is only a matter of time when something comes, and he will face to this scenario that something failed, right? So before I gave him Aurum metallicum, I was thinking what is the real sickness in him and what should change. And of course, headaches and migraines should change definitely, but what should change regarding his mental emotional state? And I found out that he's not able to feel joy and happiness in his life. And I think this was the major pathology in his case. And I gave him Aurum metallicum, and believe or not, I think I already published this case somewhere. I don't think if it was in Mentoring Club or in my Facebook group, but I already published this. And he told me, well, I don't know what you gave me, but I'm not having headaches. But what I consider to be the major change is that I don't feel like I need to be so rich and powerful, man. I just will be okay if I will be happy, man. And this was the first time I really understand how deeply homeopathic remedies can act. It was something unbelievable. So remember that, and this is the most important message in this lecture, remember that you don't need to have suicidal thoughts to prescribe this remedy in children. What you have to have is the combination of very strong mental attachment to their responsibilities and work and school or business, whatever responsibilities. If you have a 10 years old boy, the responsibility, his business is school, right? If you have 18 years old one, they can develop already their own business, but before they reach 18 years old, they will usually study. And they are very attached to be the best, to attain the goal. And the least failure leads to tremendous consequences. There can be insomnia, there can be depression, there can be palpitation, arrhythmias, there can be even heart failure in the later stages. From grief, from business failure. So remember these features to be the ones which are lesser known and very, very important in children. So regarding repertorization, we have the sadness in children, of course. They are quite sensitive to criticism, much more than Natrum muriaticum. Okay, here is Aurum metallicum in the same degree as Natrum muriaticum, but Aurum is much more sensitive to criticism than Natrum muriaticum. Fear of failure is one of the biggest fear of theirs. Aurum is one of the most important remedies here. And of course, the understanding testicles, which is the diagnosis which this rubric is related to. And you see one of those remedies here is Aurum metallicum.